Hello, hello.
Boochie boochies.
How you doing, broski?
Just hanging out.
Yeah, I'm gonna put the word out. What have you been up to?
Did you? What time are you starting?
We're gonna start in like 10 minutes. I mean, we can start now if you want to, if you have something burning, but
And, now you want to get more people in here, and then you hit at everyone.
yeah, I've done a couple at everyone's.
Yeah. Well, I think you do one like a day in advance or something, and then
Yeah, I did one like
like
this
right when you're
morning.
starting.
Yeah, I did like one like this morning, and I'm gonna do one like now.
Or at Monday show or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. The Texas abortion bill. That's what we're talking about.
Oh yeah, I just.
Is it a law now already, or is it a?
No, it's a bill. It got passed. I mean, it's getting
So it's a law
challenged, I'd
then.
imagine. I mean,
Okay, well, a law doesn't count until it passes its first judicial test, right?
fair enough. Well, I mean, it counts and it's in effect, like technically, like it's in effect, as far as I understand. But I mean, I really hope that's the case. Let me find out. You have me doubting myself now here, Doolittle.
No, I mean, well, it gets passed. I got my first deer on my trail camera.
You got your first what?
Oh, I put up a new trail camera, and a deer showed up finally.
Oh, sick. How's that look?
It's just kind of standing there.
Yeah, they kind of do that. Okay, yeah, it's in effect, but it's gonna get
Yeah, it's a
challenged.
law. Yeah. So the question is, it's like laws are like patents, right?
Laws are like
I don't
patents.
patents. Yeah, to the extent that it doesn't mean anything until it's passed its first
Oh yeah, sure, sure,
until it's
sure,
passed
sure,
its first judicial
sure.
test.
Yeah,
So
we'll see.
like if you arrest someone for this law and they say, oh, it's a violation of my amendment, and then the judge says, yeah, you're right, then it gets thrown out.
Yeah, I mean,
But somebody has to be damaged by it first before there's really a possibility to. I mean, they're going to start challenging it right away.
yeah. Well, that's the Okay, so that's kind of the problem, and that's some of this is kind of why this bill is interesting, and we'll talk about it. But it's not the government that's enforcing it, right? It's not like the police are going to show up at like Planned Parenthood. No, the way Texas has set it up is that they have empowered all citizens of Texas to sue other citizens if they do an abortion. So it's not the government enforcing it; it's
Yeah,
other
I don't think
citizens.
that's. I don't know. The way that I read it, that's not. It still doesn't. It sounds like what CNN says about it. It doesn't sound like how it's really going to pan out.
Yeah, I'm not really sure how sustainable it is. I'm not like a legal scholar as much as I like to pretend to be. So I don't really
Yeah.
know. I just know it's
Yeah.
making things difficult for initial suing and initial stymieing because they can't just sue like the police chief. They asked the Supreme Court to like immediately like stay it until they ruled, and the Supreme Court's like, no, this is like some brand new stuff. We gotta deliberate. So we'll see how that goes. It's very interesting.
So here's how it's going to work out. You can't sue someone unless you've been damaged in some way.
Yeah, I know that.
Yeah.
And
So there's it's something called standing.
yeah, no, I know what that is. That's why what.
So everyone that the law like can't create, you can't write a law that makes it so that someone who hasn't been damaged has standing. There's no, I mean, you just can't.
I mean, well, apparently they did because everything
Well,
I
I mean,
saw
they
empowered.
wrote some words on paper and voted on it.
Yeah,
But
we'll
that
see it.
doesn't
We'll
mean
see
that
if
it's
it go. Yeah, the Supreme Court might knock it for that. It's very possible. Very
or
possible.
or just any judge that
Yeah,
has a half a head on their shoulders.
yeah. Again, I'm not a scholar. I mean, I'm kind of the thing that's making me interested is why they didn't strike it down like off the bat if it was that obvious, right? Because they had a chance. The Supreme Court like said, okay, we're actually gonna deliberate this for real whenever something, if anything, gets up here, but we're not going to take immediate action.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they can't strike down a law. The
Well, they
Supreme
can
Court
stay-
can't
they
strike
can
down a law
stay
without
it,
somebody
rather.
There has to be a plaintiff.
Yeah, well, yes, but they can also do like a stay, like staying the effect of a law, which they turn down. But yes, you're right.
No, there has for them to rule for a stay. There has to be a plaintiff.
Mm-hmm. That would also explain it then. Fair enough.
Yeah. Yeah. So until somebody, until somebody sues the state of Texas, until there's a law, Letitia Brown versus the state of Texas,
Right.
where she claims that she's been injured by the law, then there's no, the Supreme Court can't do a stay.
Yeah. Well, yeah, well, I guess the whole idea of this law is that they can't sue anyone because they can't sue the state of Texas because the state of Texas isn't enforcing it. Now, I don't know if that's going to hold, but when I read that, I was like, that's kind of interesting.
Who's enforcing it?
Again, it's all the government is attempting to do is empower everyday citizens to do a civil suit on this particular thing. So it's a civil suit, not a criminal suit. So you can't really sue the state. So that's kind of interesting. It was interesting to me. Andy, how you doing, dude?
I'm all right.
How do you feel about everything going on in the Lone Star State?
Well, I can't say that I'm tremendously familiar with this specific bill,
Mm-hmm.
but I am in support of some moves against abortion.
Yeah.
But it does sound like the methods involved and the focus of the people who made this seem to be a little bit skewed from the limited knowledge that I have.
What do you mean by skewed?
Well, from what I've heard, skewed in the sense that it doesn't seem right. What I've heard is that it seems to be more of a focus on financial concerns. Would that be correct?
Well, what do you mean by financial concerns exactly?
That's where I don't even really remember what somebody else told me about this too well.
Oh. Well, yeah, I mean, I guess there's civil suits, so there's going to be, like, fines and monetary rewards and things. Like, the way they're doing it is very weird. They're trying to avoid lawsuits, which will probably not work long term, as Doolittle was talking about.
I do feel like this is taking away from the actual debate.
It's think of it. It's like the green room.
I mean, okay, you're saying
we're having a little green room discussion here.
Yeah, this isn't.
No,
there's
not
enough people
this.
in here.
I wasn't criticizing this. I mean, the bill. The
No.
bill, I feel like, is kind of missing the point of the whole thing
Missing
because
what
it doesn't.
point? Your
doesn't
point or
seem-
theirs?
Well, I mean, I guess a potential point that I have that I might be projecting unfairly onto this, but when the topic
Yeah.
of abortion comes up, I think the simple distinction would be some people think it's okay sometimes, some people think it's never okay, and I'm pretty much pro-life, and
I found another one. It's incredible.
I don't
Not
feel
alone.
like there's many.
It's not that
Many
uncommon for people to be pro-life, is it?
No. I was talking about this
people
server.
just change it. Oh,
I was talking. First of
people
all,
just change their idea of what life is, right?
well,
Like everyone's pro-life. Just some people just change. They're just like, well, it doesn't count as life until I want it to be life.
Right. Hanging Chad was very. I had this conversation with him like a month and a half ago. He was very consistent. He's like, dude, I do not care about human life at all. I care about human experience. And I'm like, I mean, that's consistent at least.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, okay.
He's anti-natalist. He wants everyone to have the best experience.
It's true.
But if you have
true.
if you have no experience, he doesn't mind that.
It's so true. It is very true.
Well, I see the destruction of a human being, especially one who hasn't done anything wrong to anyone and is even incapable of that, and if left alone could develop into anything. And I think it's incredibly presumptuous, reprehensible, and naive to say that it's just something you can just destroy. I mean, that does not. I don't accept that.
Well, I would be of the same mind. I wanted to talk about the Texas abortion bill, and I assumed it was going to branch out into the more philosophical stuff as it often does. So I'm glad to hear I got some allies. I mean, you're right. There are a lot of pro-life people, but not that I know of, like, personally. Rage times infinity. That's an intense name. I'm not sure I've seen you here before. Welcome. What do you think about the commotion down in the Lone Star State? Rage, going once, going twice. Sold, but not to you. Okay, Andy, you were talking, bro. Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think, and I'm just gonna put this out here. I'm sure I'm gonna repeat this position a lot of times, but I want to fill the time. I want to fill the dead air.
Are we gonna record this?
Yeah, this is streaming live at the moment.
Right now?
Yeah, man.
Okay.
I'm sorry if that was not clear to you. Hopefully you didn't reveal anything too sensitive.
No, I was gonna say something extremely normally there's like a little camera thing next to your name if you're
Oh, is there really? Yeah.
streaming or something like that. Okay.
No, we're streaming. Yeah, I'm kind of new to this software, so I don't really know how it all works. I was trying to give this some cool art background, but it kind of ran out of time. So next time, Doolittle, I'll give you a wizard hat or something. It'll be great. So yeah, I mean, I kind of agree with you, Andy. And again, I'm probably going to repeat this point a few times, but it's just basically what they're trying to do is take this individual living human organism, which is what a zygote is at the moment of conception, and say, okay, for humans that are born, these entities we consider a being of enough moral worth to deserve rights that we cannot infringe upon for any reason, even our own discomfort, especially parents, because parents will get charged with neglect if they just leave their kid. So all these post-birth, more developed humans we're going to call people who we care about. And then these humans over here, who are less developed and more dependent on the mother, we are not going to consider of moral worth needing the level of rights. That's how I basically understand the argument. And my point is, and I think we agree on this point, that there's a lot of distinctions that you can draw, obviously. I just drew a few while I did it. But none that I think are logically consistent. And I think when you try to call certain humans not persons, and not morally valuable,
you get into weird territory.
The historical company you're running with isn't great. And that's not to say, if you're pro-choice, you're a Nazi. That's not what I'm saying. But I am saying that we've seen this one before. So that's my general take. And I'm sure I would love to get it challenged. I see Simba and Wise Ape. Ooh, Wise Ape, I haven't seen you in a while. We are talking about the Texas abortion bill. You can respond to the bill itself, abortion in general, or both. I'd love to get your opinion on it. So, Wise Ape, would you get in here? And then we can go to Simba. All right, he unmuted. He's just building the suspense. Hello?
I'm having some issues. I don't know if you can hear me or not, but
No, I can hear you.
We can hear you.
Yeah, you're good, man.
yeah. I didn't know the topic was on abortion or choice, but my choice is for life.
Yo.
Yeah, I don't think I'll have anything too much to add to that.
So, Texas heartbeat bill, you down? You down with that? All right.
Yeah, we can't hear you, Wise.
Yeah, Wise, we're not getting anything.
I'd like to answer that question though.
Please.
I for a long time have thought that in order to actually solve this problem the problem being the disconnect between the left and the right on the abortion issue. The main disconnect is the definition of when life starts, and I've always thought that we essentially can call someone dead when their heart stops beating. And if you do revive somebody after their heart stops beating, you consider it's almost like you're reviving them from death, right? So not having a heartbeat means you're dead.
Okay.
People can say, "Oh, brain dead," or
I'll track with that.
heart dead, right? But I think having a heart, it's if somebody doesn't have a heartbeat and you leave them there, no one's gonna say you're a murderer or you should have saved them.
Unless you know CPR, as I do, so I would be held legally responsible. But continue.
Anyway, but if you did CPR, that would be like a heroic effort to bring them back to life. It wouldn't be.
I mean, yeah, I'll try. Let's keep going. I'll track.
It would be grossly negligent for you to not do CPR on somebody. I mean, if somebody their heart just stopped and you had a AED or something, and you were like, no, I'm not going to do it. I believe he's already dead. Maybe, but the heartbeat is how we tell someone's alive.
Sure, I'll track with that argument.
Someone's alive.
Yeah, I'll track with that argument for now.
I've thought for a long time that if you can detect a heartbeat in a baby, then we could say, okay, well, so now that's alive. That's a living entity.
Sure.
And I think that the mother has a duty to care for the children, at least until the point where the child is born, where they can decide to give it up for adoption to another parent. I've always been of the mind that once you essentially have detected that fetus is alive and going to survive the term, then there's not really an excuse to abort it. Now, if you don't want to keep it, I could see that, in some cases. But I don't think that abortion is really ethical or moral once you determine that it's a life. But I think that the decision is not. I don't think there's anyone that's human that thinks it's okay to kill somebody once they're alive, unless they're a broken person. So I'm not worried about the fringe, like the super fringe that say, well, we can go around killing people. Well, I don't think anyone that's reasonable is going around killing people or allowing other people morally to go around killing people. So the question is, where does it become a life? And I've always thought the heartbeat is a sensible way to do it. You could say brainwaves, but is there really a way to measure the brainwave?
Yeah, brainwaves are earlier
of
too.
A fetus. I don't know. That's kind of hard to do. It's easy to detect the heartbeat, so I think it's a totally reasonable line to draw to say, okay, this baby's alive once we detect the heartbeat.
Sure.
Or if we know that the heartbeat usually develops by a certain point, let's say, I don't know what it is, 6 weeks. We could say anything after 6 weeks, because that's when it normally develops. That relieves people of the burden of proving that there's a second heartbeat, which is, that might be hard to do in a court of law, but especially if you don't have, sophisticated instrumentation. So we could say if you know you're pregnant for 6 weeks, then you can't get an abortion. It doesn't say you can't get an abortion. I mean, the rare ones, that people are really super worried about it, the incest rape, and what are the other ones that people say we should be able to get an abortion?
Threat to the life of the mother, and that one pro-life and pro-choice actually agree on.
Okay.
But that's incredibly rare. That almost never happens. Like that's
so if you're 4 weeks pregnant, okay, you're gonna know, right?
Right.
If you get raped by your father,
oof,
and you're 4 weeks pregnant, you can make that decision at 4 weeks. But if you drag it out to 3 months and you're like, I changed my mind. I used to love my daddy. I don't love him anymore. I don't think it's fair to the baby to abort it after it's alive. And at some point the mother has a duty to the baby, right? And someone's got to draw a line somewhere. And Texas happens to draw it at the heartbeat, which I think is a reasonable place to draw it. Not every state has to draw that line at the same place. We have a federalist system for a reason. We have 50 different states.
Okay.
It's the United States of America is an experimental union where every state can experiment with their own laws and see how they work, and the ones that don't like the outcomes can say, well, these other states tried these other things, and we can change our laws to match what really works. So
yeah, I
mean, I think it's a totally reasonable law to have. The weird stuff that the media tries to spin on it, that says there's a bounty on abortion doctors or something. I think it seems to me like that's fake news. I'd have to see that play out at least one time in a court of law where somebody gets a bounty for reporting an abortion.
Oh, that's dude, that's the bill.
I don't know. I read the whole bill, and it sounds to me like somebody just can get their legal fees paid up to $10,000. So
yeah,
I mean, that's a lot different.
People have been misconstruing it. Yeah, people have been misconstruing it to like you just get $10,000.
Yeah, like people coming in from all over the country, like, I'm gonna go find me some aborting women to report them to get my $10,000. Well, that's not really how it doesn't seem like that's really how it's going to work. And like I said before, if you haven't been damaged by the conduct of another person, there's not any way that any court is going to apply a civil penalty. If there's no damages, you have no standing, they'll just throw the case out. So it's if you get involved in a lawsuit for an illegal abortion, and you have legal fees and stuff like that you have to pay, that's what that's to cover. I don't see there actually being bounty.
Sure.
I don't see that happening.
So interesting takes. Interesting takes. I don't agree with everything you said, but you and I seem to be on the same side, like as terms of practical policy goes, Doolittle. So Killian, get in here. What are you thinking?
Yeah, so I've been hearing a lot of weird shit about this ever since it popped off. Like, I definitely heard the bounty thing. One of the things that I think that's the weirdest thing that I've heard, at least anecdotally, is just I know for a fact, just research-wise, that Satanists in Texas are using their religious freedoms to try to.
Yeah, it's not gonna work.
I'm calling bullshit on that one. I just have
that's not gonna work.
Bullshit radar that I'm just fucking.
Religious.
It's going off. It's going off real hard on me. My bullshit radar alarms. Going off
that's not gonna work.
On the Satanist religious freedom.
They're an anti-religion.
That's all I was like. Stop. That's literally the thing about Satanists. That's literally why the group is a thing.
Right.
It's to satirically poke at Christianity and also use the fact that they can be used as a religious group to counter bullshit that Christianity uses as religious freedoms. They only use it. They use it in the exact opposite way that most mainstream religion does. It's almost always for positive change.
I would say that if we accept the premise
from their perspective, positive change.
Right, and I also share that perspective because I think being able to have an abortion when you really feel like you need one and not to be restricted.
Don't you think needs a pretty strong word?
Well, sure. I might think needs a pretty strong word. I'd also like to finish everything I'm saying, and then we can tackle it at the end.
There you go.
Cool.
All right.
It's an interesting thing that I saw about that because is it kind of like what was it Doolittle said? I believe, and I believe that there's a certain point in the development where you can't really call it, or you can't really say that there's nothing wrong with it, or that there's no harm being done. Mine is a little bit different in the case that it's.
Let me clarify. I think there's a point where the mother has a duty to protect the child.
Sure.
Oh, okay. So,
right.
Okay,
So,
and
so
I guess.
Yeah, it's a mistake up until some point, and then at some point the mother has the mother has responsibility over the child.
Right. And we're talking in general, not
like when a child is 8 years
circumstances.
old. Yeah, like if a child is 8 years old and a mother doesn't provide due care to protect that child, that mother could go to jail and the child could be taken away and put in protective custody. And so where does that duty start? And to me, I think it starts somewhere before birth. Some other people disagree. I totally get that they disagree, but I think at some point a duty starts. And to me, it's as soon as you recognize that baby is alive, and I think that the heartbeat is a reasonable point. Other people could disagree on when that starts, like Muslims say, like after birth or something.
I was about to. That was basically like I was going to disagree with the heartbeat thing, but that's more of a personal thing. I don't really have a political reason why I care about that as much. Is it, I think it's when the fetus is capable of detecting and feeling pain, but and that's a little bit later than the heartbeat. But was it
And you guys both agree that at your respective lines, abortion should be considered, like, legally speaking, like similar to killing like an infant, for example? Or would you guys not go that far?
I agree with the premise that if you have an X amount of time to think about it, it's a very rare case that somebody's pregnant without them knowing for like months and months. Like I get like a month or 2 or even 3 sometimes, but it's very rare to not know that somebody's pregnant after 4 months. So I think that having all that time to be able to create a decision, and like let's say if we make it even up to the day that we believe that it's okay, you know what I mean? And then they go one after that day, I really feel like that there's got to be like a hard sorry.
Right.
You know,
there's a hard sorry for like infants. Like, I'm sorry you don't want to feed your kid anymore because you're on economic hard times. But that doesn't mean you get to abandon it.
Exactly.
Sorry.
There needs to be just like a hard fucking, that's too bad.
Yeah, like
you
tough shit.
had all the time to do this. It's not a big deal. Like we were even okay with it, and then you waited until the deadline and then still didn't do it. And now, even though we've given you all of this opportunity, you're gonna go ahead and try and screw like this person now, basically, or this being that is damn near completed out of life.
Yeah.
Now, I think this argument actually changes as technology grows stronger, because
viability gets pushed back.
Yeah, because viability. Eventually, we're going to be able to make like 5-6 month old children completely viable.
Right. I mean, eventually we might just get to full artificial wombs, and then
and in that case, all the only babies that are going to be made are going to be ones that we wanted to make. So.
And that's kind of scary to me personally, but.
Yeah, true. But to pull back on it, basically, overall, it's not what I would want as like a law, because honestly, the only thing I would want changed is the idea from a heart to the pain receptors. But other than that. I haven't read the bill overall, so I can't say if there's anything like shit in there that I need to be worried about. But as it comes from just like the very front of looking at it, just like, bare bones, it seems that it's just another anti-abortion bill that they're doing their best to, I guess, work into the system there. I don't think it's gonna, I don't know, maybe it'll make things better, but getting rid of the option or making the option more difficult has historically led to like shittier choices made by people.
Yeah.
I feel like being choked without options can create some serious problems.
Wise-Ape, hit us.
If you want to entertain this idea, but when you were talking about artificial wombs, Okay, let's think about that. At what point, and I imagine that there would be an AI system involved on some level with these artificial wombs, but like, would we grant it acceptable for the the artificial womb to choose to have an abortion when the the fetus is healthy and viable and everything, just because for whatever reasons it might have, or would we say no, you have to discharge that fetus and humanity will take care of it.
I think in that case, if you had a couple and they were like, they decided they're going to use an artificial womb for their baby, and it turns out that, when they mix their genes together or whatever, the kid has Down syndrome or something like that, or something like entirely fucked up. I can't think of any like super terrible children diseases, but just imagine a super terrible child disease. And
Down syndrome or autism is about like as tough on the parents as it gets.
All right, so let's say, and just for the sake of this, let's say the sake of this argument, it's like the most severe version that we can talk about. It doesn't always have to be that way, but for the sake of argument, is it because of I guess at this point in technology, we'd probably be able to have not only like a viability count basically, or like a percentage at that point, but we'd also have the ability to have the parents decide if I want to live the next 30 to 45 years of my life taking care of my son or my daughter or this thing or whatever, however they want to say it. Is it and if that's a decision that they choose to make, then there's nothing wrong with it, but I personally don't have a problem with somebody going and looking at something that like anybody that's going to be nothing but a burden for 40 years, drain somebody emotionally, mentally, physically, financially, and they had the option to get rid of it and they didn't because it wouldn't be fair. That doesn't make any sense. It's not fair to them.
Are you talking in the concept of after conception, like abortion, or were you talking artificial wombs? I'm sorry, like design.
Oh no, sorry. The topic switched on artificial wombs, but
okay, fair enough.
Yeah, but what it was going to when we're talking about just abortion again, all the way up until the fetus is capable of feeling and receiving pain. As soon as that happens, I've got a problem with terminating that because it's causing pain. Before that, there isn't really anything there's not pain going on.
Okay, so Killian, I'm going to ask you. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Wise.
Yeah, I don't know if you want to consider imagine a pet store, okay, but we have these cylinders in which fetuses are growing. And you have a baby at some point. It has a skull, it has a face and eyes. Would the company, the pet company, just be like, yeah, we got to get rid of this inventory and just incinerate their product? I mean, or would we?
Do they have paid receptors?
Yeah. Like they're a baby ready to come out of the cylinder. They're perfect. It's just that the company doesn't want this batch, and they say, we want the right to flush, crush them and flush them down the drain.
I think that many alternatives should be open before that becomes an option. Maybe it is an option in the most extenuating circumstance, but if something is fully viable at 100% to go, ready to go, especially a human, there's a million adoption agencies right now that are looking for more kids, and there's a million of parents that are trying to adopt a child. All of that could easily be arranged in that case.
Yeah, it's really hard for parents to find a good adopted child in a lot of cases. We're even importing.
For young,
we're even importing adopted children from other countries. Is how big the adoption market is. I think that in the AI situation where let's just say there's, instead of a human making the decision to do an abortion, there's an AI making the decision. I think that the neural network that the AI is constructed out of has a value system that's programmed into it that it has to have some kind of external sensor of what's the value of the things that I'm putting out, and what's the and some kind of internal sensors. What's the amount of effort that it takes to raise one of these to viability, right? And if the AI is halfway good at predicting what the demand is going to be for its baby products, then it's going to be making the decision to either bring, the better the AI is, the earlier it's going to make its decision to bring that baby to full term, right? Because it takes a lot of energy to go from. It doesn't take a lot of energy to make a zygote, but it takes a lot of energy to gestate that baby up to the point where it's a self-sustaining organism, right? So the best AI is going to make that decision as early as possible.
So basically, the second DNA forms.
I want to take this a little
least
further.
amount of energy.
So, like, if we can imagine this this store, this factory with babies in vats, growing them, and we grant the AI the authority to just get rid of a batch of human beings that are being grown, that are infants, But then let's say there's a kindergarten class that the AI is bringing up and teaching. Like, at what point is it allowed to say, well, we're going to get rid of this kindergarten class?
Hold on. We're jumping the example from the AI raising, like growing them, to now it's teaching them too.
Right.
I mean,
That's okay. Let's let him go.
We're going full dystopia right now.
I just wanted to clarify it to myself, because that's where the leap happened to me. Go ahead.
But then this leads me then to think of biblical stories where God, raised the civilization, had before the flood, and then just decided, I want to scrap this whole, segment of humanity. He just.
To be fair, they were pretty bad.
One thing was like an abortion of civilization.
Right.
No. Okay, I'm not like a religious guy, but that's not.
It doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't have to make sense. Raul, you've been here for a while. Would you hop into this weird dystopian conspiracy theory?
Yeah. So I want to question the viability aspect of it, because viability, even when a baby's born, it's not viable by itself, right?
Right.
Needs other people and resources to make it viable, as is in the womb. So I personally don't see big of a distinction between a baby in the womb or baby outside the womb, because at least for a couple of years you'll need external help for the baby to go grow up.
Yeah, it's like
adult.
Right, try 30 years.
30 for full development.
So with the kindergarten, right? The kindergartens need their parents. They need other people around them, external forces, to be viable in the first place. I think that's something unique with human beings. Is you need parents and other people to be viable in the first place. So I wouldn't really I personally, I don't think there's that big of a difference between needing the mother in the womb or needing the mother outside the womb in the first place.
So are you saying that it's okay for... No, hold on a second. Are you saying that it's okay for mothers to leave their infants on the hillside like they did in ancient Rome, or are you saying it's not okay for mothers to get an abortion with that parallel?
I'm not saying anything personally. I'm just questioning the concept of viability in terms of determining, because that's what people used to do, and people still do that in villages in Africa and other countries where abortion is not really that option, a medical option. People just leave their child to die, right?
Yeah.
So I would question the concept of determining whether a baby can be born or not based on viability, because a baby is not viable outside the womb in the first place. That's all I was questioning.
Right. So what I was saying, Raul. It takes a lot of energy to raise a baby to term, right? And it takes a lot more effort to raise it to where it's self-sustaining and to where it's its own person. The more developed we are, the more sophisticated we are, the sooner we can make that decision. right? So if we can make the decision at 6 weeks, then you're if you can make the decision at 6 weeks, you're a better person than someone that has to make that decision after the baby's born. Because it means you have more control over your environment, yourself, and your future.
Well, I would argue that we can't make that decision. Like what he was saying about viability, whether it's before or after birth, like right now in our society, if it's after birth and you neglect it or kill it, like you're in serious trouble with the law. And that, like, I would say that there's not really a big distinction there between after birth or before birth, and that the decision shouldn't be left to the individual to, it's like you don't have a decision to pay taxes or not. Like, I mean, it's implied that you must pay your taxes. So if I was to pressurize or if I was to encourage people, I would say, like, I don't know, you must not take this life. Sort of like a hard sorry.
Right.
The choice, like the line where you can get abortion, should be made based on like people having a choice, or based on that zygote being a human being in the first place. I was like reading that. It was like being a choice, right?
So I would say the difference. I would say the difference between the viability inside and outside of a mother, and it does depend on the level of technology that you have and where you're at, and as well as it does depend. Yeah, it depends on the technology when it comes to the viability inside, because when you're growing a child, like literally growing one, there's a certain cocktail of chemicals and shit like that need to be pushed inside of you a certain way that you need to be fed because you're not capable of eating through your mouth yet. There's a lot of things that are, and the way that you're cradled inside of like the womb, like juice basically, is that there are certain things inside of there that if you didn't have a high enough level of technology around you, you couldn't just take that baby out of the stomach and then keep it alive. Even if you like, there's a certain level of technology you have to have for that viability. So that can change up what we're talking about in the first place. Is that secondly, that viability changes because even if the mother dies while the baby is inside of them, so does the baby or the fetus. That's gonna die as well. But if you took a baby as it was and the mother died and the baby was just on the ground, there's a possibility that somebody could come by and pick up that baby. There's a difference in the level of viability when it comes to being inside the womb growing and gestating versus being outside of the womb fully grown and gestated, or at least as far as it comes in the fetal stage.
Okay, so Killian, this is what I'd say, and we have other people to get to.
Like a degree of viability.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was gonna say, Raul. It seems that you're using degree in order to justify a changing kind, right? Because you're saying that, look, because he's not
kind.
Yes, because you're not viable enough yet, essentially. And tell me if I'm wrong. Please tell me if I'm wrong. You're saying that because you're not viable enough yet, this means that we will not treat you similar to other human beings. You're using a difference in degree of viability to justify treating the unborn and adults as a different kind. That's how I understand your argument.
Oh no. When I'm talking about that all goes by the treatment of it goes by whether or not it's capable of feeling pain.
Okay, yeah, that's an interesting line too.
It doesn't go by the degree of viability in that case for whether or not it's going to get terminated. For me, it goes whether or not it's capable of recognizing and feeling pain.
Yes, and I want to come back to that, but we could both take up all the time. But Simba, I don't think we've heard from you yet, and I'd love to get you in here, and then we got to go to Deltsu. We don't want to hog the mic the whole time, despite my temptations. Simba, going once, going twice. Sold, but not to you. Okay, Deltsu, don't strike out the second time. Okay, great. What do you think about the abortion, the Texas bill, all that jazz? Give us your thoughts.
Well, I haven't read the Texas bill or anything. If I had to give my feelings on it at the moment, I would think that the most dangerous thing about it might be concerning, like, when a father cannot, when they can and cannot intervene in the abortion process, and I could see possible scenarios coming from that area where there might be, like, say someone that you wouldn't want being a father in the first place trying to claim that you're killing their kid, and so they're trying to like sue you to keep the kid alive, and maybe the girl is just traumatized for something like that or something along those lines. But outside of, like, I haven't read the law, it might cover stuff like that. And so that would be the only thing that I would see, 'cause at least it doesn't sound like you can actually go out and collect a bounty.
No, but you can go out and sue somebody. As far as I understand the law, it basically empowers any citizen to sue any other citizen. Any citizen to sue abortionist doctors or anybody involved in making the procedure happen. It kind of empowers everybody to have standing in this case, which is very new, and probably and me and Doolittle were talking about this, probably won't stand forever because that's not how civil suits work. But I mean, that the situation you pose is technically possible. I mean, sure, but I mean, you wouldn't make the same argument if it was like an infant, and right. It all depends on just how much value, how much stock you put into the unborn. Or am I misreading you here?
Yeah, I haven't fully placed where, like, pain receptors seems like a good rule of thumb, I would think, but I haven't philosophically figured out exactly.
Team pain over there.
But
I think biologically that's a lot muddier than it sounds like, because the first organ that develops in the clump of cells is the skin, and the brain splits off of that organ later on, and so the clump of cells actually does act as if repulsed to pain, like it shies away from heat sources.
Everything does. Amoebas do that. Everything does.
Yeah,
that.
well, yeah, but that's
so
the problem.
Philosophically, it's hard to say that amoebas don't feel pain, or that single cells don't feel pain.
I mean, it's you can put that up to using whatever feeling it has, a recognition of being like deleted. And it's more of a, I don't want to die, and so I'm going to move away from here.
Hold on. Okay, in order, it seems like you need self-awareness, which does not.
I don't think they have. I think that amoebas have a proto self-awareness.
Okay.
Yeah, so what's the Turing test for zygotes?
Well, the Turing test for zygotes, it can find a way to plug them into a computer. We can start that, I guess, but.
No, I mean, what's the test that you give to tell whether something is self-aware?
Oh, was it self-aware or proto-self-aware? Because at least
self-aware that you would be okay with making it illegal to kill.
To where you can say it feels pain. Somebody's got to be self-aware to say it feels pain by your definition. It sounds like.
Of how you're using pain.
We can measure it. We can literally measure whether or not something feels pain. So.
Well, the development of nerve cells is, that's fair. Because the heart cells kind of form and they don't have nerve cells attached to them yet, and they just kind of start beating. Even before the nerve cells are formed.
A central motor cortex development or something like that. Once that starts.
So, there's some point though that everyone agrees there's some point, and you got to draw a line at some point. People disagree on the point. But there's some point where someone's going to say this thing is alive now, and it's its own thing.
Yeah, I think all of us seem to have that
baseline
somewhere within like a couple months of each other. It seems like we're all within 1 or 2 months of each other when we agree on that point. It's just we're not agreeing on the specific point,
which is nice.
So
Which means we're practically on the same side in terms of like policy, mostly, just in terms of maybe philosophy. So I'm gonna.
What are the parameters of the policy? Is the disagreement?
Yeah, right. So I'm gonna start throwing some stones now because I think we've gotten to everybody. So I'll ask you this, Killian and Deltsu. What about the ability to feel pain inherently makes you more morally valuable? And I'm gonna throw a couple thought experiments out there that you've probably heard before, but like. If you pump me full of anesthetic, I can't feel pain. That doesn't mean it's okay to kill me.
Hold on 1 second. I've got a
stuff like that.
1 second. Hold on. So I've got this from acog.org.
Okay.
Is it a human fetus does not have the capacity to experience pain until after viability. Rigorous scientific studies have found that the connections necessary to transmit signals from peripheral sensory nerves to the brain, as well as brain structures necessary to process those signals, do not develop until at least 24 weeks of gestation.
Ooh, okay. Well, then we're not in a few weeks of each other, Killian. Oh, FYI, by the way, this is going to be a shorter one. We still have like half hour to 45 minutes, but this show is going to be shorter. So I just want everybody to know that. We can keep talking, but the live is going to end in like a half hour.
So if this is true, this is actually later than I was aware of.
Yeah, 24 weeks.
If it's 24 weeks that like pain is a thing. If that,
they're saying the cognitive ability to process pain. It doesn't mean they can't react to it.
Yeah, they react to it early.
Well, no. Hold on a second. No, it's because the next bit of that because it lacks these connections and structures, the fetus does not even have the physiological capacity to perceive pain until 24 weeks of gestation.
Ooh. Okay, well.
So I'm actually going to, if this is true, which I'm going to check a couple more sites to back check this, if this is true, then I'm going to modify mine and just go ahead and move to about the 3.5 month mark.
That is very interesting. Okay. So.
it's still essentially first trimester is fair game. Right.
Yes.
So the heartbeat's way earlier than pain, according to that model of what pain is.
Yeah, if that's true, which I was under the impression that it was a little earlier than that it developed.
Yeah, dude, the heartbeat's like 3.5 weeks.
But you're still drawing the line at like the first trimester, and most states are like
way past that.
Into the second. Way past that. Second trimester's fine. In Virginia, they're even talking about like after.
Oh yeah, no, I would still.
That's whack.
Yeah. Okay, so that when I fucking heard, I literally said as soon as I heard that, I can't remember if I was listening to it somebody else was
listening to it on Alex Jones.
Little bit of Jones on Rogan.
I literally said that's murder. I was just like, after birth abortions.
That's just called murder, broski.
That's just Well, I don't know why you're trying to hide. What? No, it's born already. That's murder.
You see, it's physically changed location, and now
people like Pierce Singer, right? Who say like when the baby or the child develops consciousness, but like a brain activity. So he's like still 4 years old. You can basically get rid of the child.
People can remember when they gained, when their full sapience kicked in. Like, people recall those moments of their lives. Like, they weren't just fully aware from the get-go.
Yeah, no, I remember when I became self-aware.
4, and I was like 4, and my sister slapped me. And like when I got up, I started being aware of the pain, and I was like, "Ow, this hurts," and she's a bitch. And I was like, "Oh shit, I'm thinking."
I remember when I had my first actual thought inside my head, it was mac and cheese. That was the first.
That is a great first thought. I appreciate that.
I thought it was
fucking cheese.
Mac and cheese. My dad told me that
Dal, you just destroyed your sandwich.
Okay.
Boom.
All right. I'm gonna take.
You can't do that one. We're gonna.
To answer your philosophical question, Delta.
Sure.
I would think that the ability to feel pain does not make you more morally valuable, but the destruction of something that could feel pain or can feel pain would put you in a sort of moral deficit that you wouldn't be in otherwise.
Sure, but you'd admit pain itself doesn't work, right? Because again, like, you put me on anesthetic and I'm asleep, I can't feel anything. If you stab me, That's still murder because I'm going to wake up in
Yeah,
like
but
an hour.
you can feel pain. You just have a chemical in your body preventing you from feeling that pain, but you have the
It's not.
capability.
Yeah. These.
Okay, so
It's literally. Good.
Sorry, Dal, what point do you think the mother has a duty to protect her child?
Well, I mean,
Not focusing, not focusing on the child, but focusing on the mother. At what point in the sequence of events of her knowledge and gaining knowledge about her pregnancy, and investing in the pregnancy and etc. At what point does she gain a contractual duty to take care of the child? At some point she does, right? Like when a child is 6 and she leaves the child out on the street and someone kidnaps him, you could say, well, that mother was negligent in taking care of her child, right? And at some point the mother has a duty to protect the child. At what point does that duty start?
that's a difficult question. I could perhaps say something like, I don't think I could choose a specific point. It might have to be like, because my personal feelings would be that you should always have that feeling, especially if you were trying to become a mother. So maybe it depends on a lot of context in the personal life of the mother. And I don't know why she's pregnant, how she went about having this kid. If it was on purpose, then I would think from the moment of conception you should be trying to protect your child. But if it was an accident, then it would probably have to coincide with, it might have to coincide with pain, with the same sort of pain thing. Like, maybe you don't have to have that instinct to protect your child till it's developed enough to have that center motor cortex. But if you wanted to have a kid, of course you should protect your child before that.
All right, Lebowski, sorry, Killian,
okay,
go,
I
and
was
then
gonna say real
Lebowski.
quick, my thought on this in particular is that if the woman gets like accidentally, pregnant or whatever, she's having sex and if that's the case and it's within the first trimester and she has determined that she's pregnant and she's decided, well, at this point I'm gonna carry this baby the full term, it happens right there. It happens right at the time that she discovers and makes a decision within the time that is acceptable to be saying that you're not destroying something that can feel pain.
Yeah, I tend
to agree. Yeah.
I mean,
think that the idea of conception it's an idea. It's when that idea is formed. When the mother first has the idea that she's going to be a mother and accepts that.
Yep.
And that's when the duty is
to
protect the child.
All right, Lebowski, get on in here, man. Texas abortion bill, abortion in general. You can even talk about Texas in general. Our topic is vast. Please give us some of your wisdom. Lebowski, once, twice. Nope, sold. Not to you. Okay. Maybe I'll come back. Do you have someone else new in here? Yeah, Zin.
Why would you say like pain is like the measure?
Yeah,
like humanness, right?
I kind of reject that metric as well. I'm not really sure why the ability to feel pain should determine your moral worth as a human. That seems a little strange to me.
Moral worth. I didn't. I wasn't. Moral worth. I didn't.
Moral worth is what we're talking about, right?
No. What?
Yeah, because if the unborn it has the moral worth of a person, you can't kill it. That's what we're talking about.
No, we were talking about the viability. We were talking about the viability in abortion. We weren't talking about moral worth of a child.
Well, I don't really
Or
draw a
fetus.
distinction between
Viability,
those
but,
two
like,
things.
Like, when does a zygote become a human?
I mean, if
Like, what is that
to me,
point?
to me, it's a different conversation. When does a zygote become a human?
Well, at what point is it not okay to kill anymore, basically? And
I've already agreed with when it's not okay to kill it. That's was it 3.5 months? I think the first trimester. Like it's okay to get rid of your fetus at that point. But anything after that, you've probably found out that you were pregnant, and you've probably made the decision to not do it up until that point. I don't see why you'd get freaked out and try to switch it up after that. So.
I mean, I'm happy that we agree there. I guess my question would be like, regardless of how long the mother has known, either the unborn kid has a right not to be killed or it doesn't, regardless of what's fair to the mother or what the mother knows or doesn't know when.
Okay. I don't believe in any natural rights. Those don't exist.
Oh, well, that explains a lot. Okay.
Yeah,
I was very confused for a second there.
There's no such thing as a natural right.
Okay, well, we could have that fight. That's my next show is do natural rights exist?
Yeah, humans.
Thanks. That's our next topic.
Yeah, humans don't. Humans don't have rights just by existing.
So you don't have a natural right to live just because you exist. You would say, okay.
No.
Okay, that's a take. That's a take and a half. Killian bucking all of Western philosophy.
To ensure those rights. Without government,
That's
rights.
Killian is an anarchist.
Yeah, pretty much. So a baby has a right to not get eaten when we have the ability to defend it from getting eaten. Because because you don't have any rights in the first place to start with. So if you're starting with the base of 0, and let's say you're in a village somewhere in the beginning, and you had a baby out in this village and shit like that, and all the elders just blessed it or whatever, did the dance. Then a fucking tiger comes and everybody starts running because of the fucking tiger. The tiger comes and goes, oh wow, look, a baby, and eats it. Like. There was no right in the universe that was like, hold on, tiger, you can't eat this baby. That's not right.
I don't know if that's exactly what.
No. That's exactly what it is. There was nothing that gave the tiger an inkling that it didn't have the right to not eat the human based on it existing. There's like the human. You don't get rights just by being there.
Okay, does anyone want to respond to that very humorous example? Because otherwise, I'm going to.
Something like a tiger isn't going to be aware of something like a right. That doesn't speak on whether it exists or not.
Sure, it speaks to the tiger's awareness, which is low. Let's say a saber-toothed tiger doesn't know shit.
Sure. So, could you give me an example of why you would have a right just by being born? Like just by existing, by virtue of nothing else, except for the fact that you breathe. Why do you have rights? Like from there, what gives you rights?
I couldn't give you any explanation that I feel would actually satisfy you, Jackie.
I mean, I can give something. It's not going to satisfy you, but it's basically the answer that I have. I mean, first of all, here in America, at least, and largely the West, you may have heard, there are some truths that we hold to be self-evident, and I know that's not very convincing to a skeptic, so that's number one. But number two, the idea of negative rights always really appealed to me, which is basically anything you can do in a state of nature, like you're talking about 0, like naked in the woods, that's something that is a right, and therefore should not be violated and should be protected by any society that's correctly constructed.
That only exists because of a government that's formed, though.
No. Those rights existed beforehand. Those rights already existed. I was already alive. I don't need the government to keep being alive. I can pick up a stick and bear arms. I don't need the government to give me a weapon. Like, that's not...
Rights only apply... Killian, rights only apply to the interactions between human beings.
Yes.
They don't apply to the interaction between a human and a tree,
or the nature,
or a human and a cliff, or a human and a tiger, or a human and a hot air balloon.
Awesome. Well, even in that instance, is it besides the ability to recognize that it's a bad thing and be able to defend against it, there's no actual rights because, again, there's nothing that besides other people that is going to impose the lack of a right to do something on another person. So if somebody goes up and stabs a baby, which would be completely terrible.
Well, I'm glad we agree on that at least. Why though? Because the baby doesn't have a right to live, Killian.
No, it's completely terrible because I think just the ending of somebody's consciousness is awful. But is it just because I personally think it's awful and doesn't really mean anything, honestly, but the person basically who did that really fucked up act, there was no real thing that existed technically that was like, you don't have a right to do this, and even if there was, it was completely thrown away and ignored. It wasn't something that was able to actually be upheld unless there was someone else or another human around that says you don't have the right to do this. Now, in a bubble, without that person has all of the rights they possibly can without somebody else trying to basically impose their will on it. So there has to be a force or an entity that is saying these are what rights are in order to counter what other people are doing or wanting to do. And if there's not that, these are what the rights are because we believe in them, then that doesn't exist in a vacuum.
But regardless, for our
Rights do exist in, like,
purposes,
society, right? There's a difference.
Oh,
between,
no, they exist in society, yeah, for sure. Like,
Yeah.
rights
and
exist
that's what we're
because of
talking
government.
about, right? We're
But
talking about
no,
human-on-human
no.
interactions with
No, I'm
abortion.
talking about natural human rights.
No, I know that,
don't
but
exist.
we're talking about those in relation to how it affects
Can I
abortion.
respond?
And abortions involve humans
when
talking
it
to
comes
each other.
when it comes to a government, yeah,
Can-
we've got
can I respond?
One
we've
sec,
got
Nivek.
systems set up for this. Yeah.
One sec.
Wait,
Go ahead.
Nivek, before you respond to
Yeah.
that, we want to hear your take on the Texas
Yeah.
abortion law.
Yes.
And then go
Oh,
into
yeah.
go into rights, which is kind of a rabbit hole.
Give us your hot take, Nivek. We're ready.
No, I didn't really focus on the specifics of the abortion law in Texas. I just was going to give my view on abortion and what Killian said about natural rights.
Please.
Yeah, let's hear it.
Well, I don't see us separate from other creatures and the environment in there being natural rights because we survive we ourselves is nature, and we're a part of it. So it also applies to other beings, other creatures, and the environment outside of us, of nature. You know, we're not separate of it. We're all a system. Everything is a system. Everything is a symbiosis system that comes together. I don't see. So I do hold a view of natural right.
Okay. And Killian, if I'm understanding you correctly, you believe natural rights might exist in the context of human-on-human interactions, but like you buck the idea of them being natural, given that like nature doesn't really give a shit whether you think you have a right to live because the tiger's going to eat you. Is that fair?
Yeah, basically, when you say natural rights, it's natural rights given the fact that there's human intervention.
Yeah, when I say natural rights, I mean abilities, and guarantees. Well, yeah, abilities that pre-existed government and should be guaranteed by government.
That doesn't exist. Yeah, that doesn't exist in a vacuum in nature, but when people come together, it exists.
Well, the abilities exist before government and nature, and that's the
think
point. And then they get
I think you're
protected by
probably-
society later.
Yeah, Killian, I think you're probably maybe a little bit off from what I see rights are. To me, rights are things that I'm allowed to do, right? When you're talking about a tiger might eat you,
Sure.
that's not in reference to things that I'm allowed to do, right? I'm allowed to.
Oh, okay.
I'm allowed to live. I'm allowed to live. I'm allowed to own myself. I'm allowed to defend my bodily integrity. So if a tiger comes to eat me, I'm allowed to stab it with a spear as it's trying to eat me. If I choose not to, the tiger eats me. If I don't have a spear, if I don't have a gun, the tiger eats me. That's not the tiger
Right.
didn't violate my rights.
Yeah, but that's within understanding. The tiger is not aware, so you're not gonna take it on, put it on trial, and
Right, yeah, because because tigers aren't. Because
that
tigers aren't.
That was an example I used because I'm pulling it back. Well, when you say when I hear the word natural and we're talking about the right to be able to do something, I'm pulling it back I'm pulling it back further than that than what you guys are referencing.
No, natural rights are really just corollaries to the right to exist. Like
correlates to the right. Exactly. And we
fundamental
don't actually,
thing that I'm allowed to do.
We don't actually have the right to exist.
The fundamental thing that I'm allowed to do is to take whatever actions are necessary to perpetuate my own existence.
Right.
And that's a right that I have. It's things that the set of all things that I'm allowed to do is to perpetuate my own existence. And
technically that's not even true. That's not even true necessarily. I mean, it's true in the general case.
Yeah.
But that's not even true necessarily.
And that applies to other beings as well. Because the well-being of other animals and the environment around you.
Tigers are allowed to perpetuate their own existence, and the way they do that is by eating human babies.
Yeah.
Sometimes, yeah. At least when it was more popular to have unprotected.
The saber-toothed tiger is evolved, right? The saber-toothed tiger is evolved with one giant tooth that was just in the right place to puncture a human infant skull, right?
That's
gross. Exactly correct, actually.
And now we're the saber-toothed tigers.
We co-evolved with our predator.
No, I'm just fucking with you.
But we have the right to defend ourselves.
Yeah, but
from other humans and from
the tiger has a right to
so governments can't make a law that says so governments can't make a law that say I can't defend myself from a tiger.
Right. Because that's an ability that you had before the government.
So that's how a natural right turns into a law.
Mm-hmm.
Or turns into
I could see how it turns into a law. Okay, so if you're coming at it for like that, that's different. See, then what am I talking about? Like naturalistic rights? What the fuck? Because
I don't they're just referred to as natural rights, but you've invented a concept.
They're just called.
You've invented your own concept
they were called
here.
Natural rights from a long time. Just people have come to understand them differently. I think.
Yeah.
But he's saying nature doesn't care about you. It will just end.
Yeah, absolutely.
But you are nature. You're not separate of it. You're made of.
But you have a right. You have a right to perpetuate yourself.
So, like
I mean,
talking about nature.
I mean, you can. I mean, I've got. I don't know. There's niche examples I could use to say, like, to argue that, but I don't know.
Argue that you don't have the right to perpetuate yourself.
Well, it's not that you don't have, like, sometimes when some people are. Sometimes, there's very occasionally that people are put into position. In certain times, some people are put in positions where yes, it would be wrong.
Using isn't odd. Like the way nature is like what it is. Like sometimes you can't defend yourself, sometimes you can't. Like with a tiger, like you can try your luck, but like you're probably not gonna do much.
That's
right?
why I said. That's why. Okay, did you see that? Did you not hear why I clarified like 3 times? I was like, this is very.
With the right.
Not really.
It was a fun example.
Yeah, that's why I didn't want to bring it up. But it's like I could argue it.
For abortion.
Yeah.
Because it's. Abortion, the whole Texas abortion bill is about people trying to perpetuate themselves, and one of the people in the parties deciding, after a reasonable period of time, that they want to change their mind.
But
Rob,
I think we all disagree with that as far as it goes. I don't think anybody's up for like third trimester like abortions here.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's true. Nobody here says that. But again, I'd like to attack the underlying logic. By the way, if you guys didn't hear it earlier, this show is going to be a bit shorter for reasons outside of my control. So we can keep talking forever, but the live is going to end in a few minutes.
After the live's over.
Yeah, the live's going to end in like 5 minutes. So just 5 to 10 minutes.
Okay.
And that's it's just my circumstances. But I'd like to talk about the underlying logic because we all agree that at some point in development, it's not okay to kill that thing anymore, whatever that thing is, because philosophically, it's kind of confusing exactly what that thing is. And the line that I've heard is either heartbeat or not necessarily ability to feel pain, but like capacity to feel pain, which I think is slightly different. And those two things are what switch this human organism who has no value and is just a useless bunch of cells into suddenly something that's a person that has rights that we should protect. And that's the jump I've always had a problem with, is because, like, okay, yes, it gains this new capacity, it gains this new ability, it's becoming more developed and more advanced, but it's like, it feels like a magic switch flip with not really enough, like, not enough substance for me to really hop on board with. Like, Doolittle, you were talking about the heartbeat. So, I mean, I agree. I won't be like, actually, I know CPR. If I have the ability to give somebody, CPR and I refuse, and there's witnesses, I could actually go to jail. That's actually a thing. I know it because it got drilled into my head. We treat people without heartbeats as if they're moral human beings that are worth saving, because that's why we invented the defibrillator. Otherwise, why have it if no heartbeat means no value? The lack of pain capacity, I could point to maybe not sleeping coma patients, but there's people with diseases that make it so they literally can't feel pain. Like, they just literally can't. And I would point to that as an example. Like, we wouldn't just kill those people. So it's like all these little lines that we try to draw. And again, I know you guys have heard this before, but none of these lines work because I can apply them to other adult humans who we would agree we can't kill. And so I resisted this for a long time. I was pro-choice for a long time, up till like basically a year and a half ago. And as counterintuitive as it is to value something like a single cell zygote so much, I understand that's counterintuitive. All the other examples just seem logically inconsistent to me. So that's the case I would make, and we should hash this out in our remaining time.
If I may, I think a lot of I want to clarify. I don't think it's zero moral implication to get rid of a zygote. I think there's always going to be some amount of moral implication, and what we're really dealing with here is the society that we live in's capacity to allow us to have children at different points to help us decide when we can and cannot have a child, compared to it is pretty much an arbitrary thing, like when exactly we ought to do it. But I do think that it's not that a fetus becomes a human exactly when they make their pain receptors come online. Mm-hmm. It's more like that's the point at which, even with all of our tech and all the things we can do, it's and everything we know, it's obvious that it goes past that limit of moral or somewhat moral, somewhat salvageable, to immoral and insalvageable.
Yeah, so I mean, I'd agree with, like, as far as like how much quarter I give people. Like, if you're before pain, if you're like before a heartbeat, like, I still disagree with you, but I don't put you on the same moral level as like Hillary Clinton, who's like for like abortion all the way up till birth. So I agree there's something to that. I mean, I hold my position, but I think there's something to what you said. Doolittle?
Yeah, I think you're thinking of it like there's a light switch, that suddenly something has no value before, and it suddenly switches on, and then it has value.
Yeah, sperm and egg has no value, and then once they're their own organism,
I think there's a continuum
of
value,
mm-hmm.
and a continuum of people who have a different range of what they think the value function is. So let's just say any one individual thinks that there's a range of value from conception to birth, and everyone has a different idea of what that range of values is, and where it starts, where it breaks over the point where they're willing to, let's just say, devote their life to this life.
Sure.
Right. So every woman has some point where it's worth it to her to say, I'm going to put everything into it to make sure that this thing is successful. And there's a value function that every person has, and we all disagree on what's exact value from conception to birth. Okay, so not we don't all have to agree, but there's like a market clearing price of where at some point everyone has an opportunity to have an abortion that really wants one before that point, and after that point everyone that didn't want an abortion didn't get one.
Yeah,
does that make sense?
So no, it makes perfect sense.
So economically, everyone's got a different set of values, and we don't all agree on where's that point where it's worth it for me to say that's the point past which I cannot kill that baby.
Right. So
we just don't
go
agree.
ahead. Yeah, go ahead, Raul, and then I'll
quick
respond. And we'll be
response.
Nivik. Go ahead and respond, and then I'll respond. And
Yeah,
then we'll
when
be
you're
done.
saying about the value where the pain with liberals and where you were moving away from them, the flip side to that is conservatives. Like, where would they draw the line? You get what I'm saying?
I can answer that for me.
Slippery slope in that direction too, because
Sure.
some say
I'm
like
not-
as soon as
I'm not talking about a slippery
the
slope.
sperm meets the egg, you know what I mean? You
Yeah.
put on a condom. It's kind of like they're talking about interfering in the process of a potential life becoming. That's the argument, pretty much. So it doesn't matter. You are preventing immorally a life that would have been not to become, and that in itself, that act in itself is immoral. So where do you draw the line exactly in that direction?
So right, so everybody has a different has a different opinion on that, and you have to realize that there's a spectrum of different values that everybody in society has.
Okay, that's why I have a problem with conservatives is that they only care about life when the baby is. They don't care about.
Some people have a problem. Some people have a problem putting a condom on because they really want more babies.
That's why I had an issue with conservatives. They only care. They don't care about the cause and effect before a life. You know, they act like it's life. But they're all pro war after people are born, and they're all about policies that are very detrimental.
Okay.
That would lead people to social policies that are very detrimental. That would
Okay. I'm gonna respond to that, and then we're gonna cut the live, and then we are going to go to the tab and keep hashing this out. Is that cool with everybody? Because again, my circumstances don't really cater to what I want to have happen.
Do a final.
So I'm gonna be as fair as I can, and I'm going to represent you honestly. And if I really misrepresent something, please butt in. But again, limited time. So Doolittle, I agree that there's a continuum of morality, 100%. I think that's absolutely true. But I also think that's true for adult people. I think that you have a coma patient who might never wake up versus a 28-year-old single mother of two. Like, there's a moral continuum there, 100%, just like there is with a senile 99-year-old man who's dead in a week and a little baby girl. There's continuums of morality, sure, but regardless, you know what they all have in common is that you're not allowed to you're not allowed to kill any of them. Murder is a charged word. You're not allowed to kill any of them. So I agree that there's a continuum of morality. My light switch isn't all of a sudden they're automatically equal to an adult human. My light switch is once that unique DNA comes together into an organism, at that point you have a living human organism, and that's when I think that rights should at least turn on. And then from there, gradations of morality can intensify. And again, the law doesn't really do gradations particularly well. You have to draw a line somewhere, and I think conception is the most ideologically consistent. Nivik, as for the conception thing, like I can't speak for all conservatives. I'm mildly conservative. I would just say that the reason conception matters is because that's when there's new DNA in a new human organism, and sperm and egg is just one of many cells in the person's body. The DNA is not unique. It's not an organism. It's never going to be anything other than it is until it gets introduced to new genetic material. Actually, until is not the wrong word. It's not until, it's if. The thing with conception is that we're not saying it could potentially become a life. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying it already is a life. It's going to become more and more valuable as it goes necessarily. That's going to happen. As surely as a seed turns into a tree, while a sperm might contribute to something new, but probably won't. And nothing about its nature guarantees it. It's not a life yet. It's just a single cell that's part of my body. So I think you're trying to draw a continuum farther back than it can actually be drawn logically. And what I'm saying is that light switch switches on right when the DNA is created, right when the new organism is created, and then you can have all your gradations going through. So Doolittle, your and I disagreement is whether right should begin sometime during that gradation or right when the DNA light switch goes. And Nivik, you and I seem to disagree on when exactly it's consistent for the light switch to go. And,
because I see
mean,
that there's
your example is
also
colorful, but
outcomes
I think there's a pretty substantial difference between a sperm and an egg and a zygote, because if there wasn't, men
because I
would
believe
give
that there are
birth
cause
to
and
hundreds
effect
of
contributing
babies.
factors that determine outcomes
Huh?
of things.
So the order of
So-
magnitude of the probability of a new life forming.
It's so ridiculously small. It's actually zero unless it comes into contact with something foreign. It is not the same thing as a zygote, which is its own individual entity and organism that develops itself. It grows, it splits, it multiplies. A sperm doesn't. So please hash it out. I don't want to have final say. No one else can argue. Please keep arguing in the TAV, but I have to go. And please beat me up in the TAV while I'm gone if you think I'm off base. This was really fun, you guys. I'll see you next week. Have a good one.
Thank you.
Good
Yeah,
discussion.
it was fun. Good discussion. Really appreciate all of you.
It was a good one, guys.